So I want to ask you a question about the Sharks. You watch them very closely, and there was a lot of talk this week about Eric Carlson. I was there for the conversation that reporters had with Mike Greer in Toronto after the GM meetings on Tuesday. And I was kind of like chuckling to myself and not knocking any other reporter, but it was kind of like news, but not really news that the Sharks would listen on Eric Carlson. Like, why would Mike Greer be slamming the phone down when anyone's calling him about anything, let alone taking an $11.5 million player off your hands? So news, not news. And I still think there's a long way to go to actually moving Carlson, because I think the part about it that people don't consider is, and I was actually having this conversation with a GM yesterday, and I'm just looking for the convo because I want to make sure I get the point across clearly. Um, it's interesting to think about with Carlson, because not only would you have to have the Sharks retain, and like everyone's saying, well, what's that comfortable number to get Carlson to in order for them to get return? The thing is, you'd also have to then take away from the rest of your team, because so many teams are at the cap limit. You'd have to move that amount of money off your books. There's so few teams that could just take even 7.5. So how do you subtract from your team unless San Jose is going to eat a contract back that you didn't want? Um, you need someone highly motivated to do it, to offset that money, and then have the budget space moving forward and calculate properly what that cap hit's going to look like as Carlson continues to age. So it's not easy, but that's actually not the player I wanted to ask you about. And you can chime in on Carlson too. But I wanted to ask you about Timo Meier, because I think he's the way more interesting trade chip. And what do the Sharks get for him?
Well, I want to start with Carlson first. I'm not surprised he's off to a good start, Frank. If anybody watched the last 30 games last year when Carlson was
He was
starting to get
unreal.
like he was so good last year, and he came to camp this year, and like 2 days into camp, Shark guys are like, he's on a different level. And look at, like, he had 4 points last night. He was in on all four of their goals last night in the loss. He's now tied with Leon Draisaitl for second in NHL score. He's got 28 points. Like, people were talking about Cale Makar is going to be one of the, he's going to put up 100 points as a defenseman. Erik Karlsson is the guy right now who's blowing people out of the water. He is healthy. The other thing is he loves being the alpha dog. As far as, him and Brent Burns, they got along great, but there was two right shot defensemen. They were sharing time. They were on the power play. Nothing was working
They
for
both
both
love
guys.
having the puck on their stick. Their games
Yes.
were way too similar for both. There wasn't enough oxygen for both of them to survive.
Yeah. And they both played well. Like, you would think that it would help, but like, say, okay, well, and we've seen guys like Niedermayer and Pronger did it, right? And they won a Stanley Cup together. They also had lots of other good players, but it never really worked. But Karlsson was never really healthy. Like, the amount of stuff that he would have to do between games the last few years just to remain, like, lots of tissue issues and stuff that just took a lot of time to recover. And I think, Frank, we probably underestimated how good Karlsson in his prime, when he was healthy before the first Achilles injury, right? Like, Erik Karlsson he was so dynamic of a defenseman that you kind of maybe take it for granted a little bit. And maybe it's because he was playing in Ottawa, and so he wasn't getting a ton of exposure. But that was in the time where the league's more offensive now too. So that helps. There's more opportunities for guys. But like, look at Karlsson. So he's an 11.5 cap hit. It's obviously way too high. But what if he's at 8.5? Like, look at the other defensemen that are around there and look at their production, right? And then look at how many years left they have in their contract from guys like Darnell Nurse, Dougie Hamilton, Miro Heiskanen, Oliver Ekman-Larsson, Thomas Chabot. Go down the list. Jacob Trouba's an $8 million. John Carlson's an $8 million. So there's 16 other guys in the league who are an 8 mil or more cap hit. Karlsson, I know 11.5. We can all say, yeah, that's too high. Age, everything else. If I'm San Jose, I don't know if I'm eating more than 3.5. And if I was an NHL team to get a right shot defenseman, my only risk is potentially, does he get hurt again? But anybody can get hurt at any time. And that would be my only risk for that, because I think Karlsson, healthy, there's very few defensemen like him in the NHL.
I totally agree. But what are you? So you got to take the 8.5. What are you giving to get him?
Well, there's a few things here at play. I think, San Jose is going to want young prospects, Frank. Like, they don't have any, right? So you're going to have to give up more. Like Brent Burns, like they got Lorentz, right? They didn't get really much else. I think San Jose
They
will
basically just got off the cap hit and still took 34% of it.
Yeah. And they didn't get anybody. And to me, that wasn't a good trade. I look at Erik Karlsson, especially the way he's playing. I think the Sharks, I look at teams, okay, who has an expiring contract that San Jose would just eat because, right? Like they'll eat it right now because it gets them through the year. But then they're going to want some young prospects in an organization. So like there's teams we know you can count out. The Penguins have nothing to offer. Not that they would be interested, but we went through their lack of that, right? So I would take a deep dive on organizations that have, like Tampa Bay for years, Frank, when they were a dominant top team, they had all these draft picks and they used lots of them to get different guys, right? And it worked. So I got to do a deep dive on it, but I think there are teams out there. And as a right pair defenseman, Erik Karlsson right now is a legit number one. There's zero debate in my mind about that. A legit number one defenseman. He's a right shot defenseman, which makes it even more rare. And even at 8.5, I wouldn't blink an eye if I was a team who could acquire him, knowing I'd probably get rid of one expiring contract and then have to give up 3 probably pretty good young pieces. I think it'd be worth it if I'm a team that feels they can take a run. Like I look at Florida and,
I think you are looking at this way too simplistically. I think this is one of the more complex transactions we could ever see in hockey history if it happens.
You think?
Yeah, like he has 4 more full years. The contract expires when he is.
Yeah, but he's only 32.
It expires. Okay, but you need to take on the whole thing for the rest of it. Like
8.5. But that's what I'm saying. If it's $8.5 million defenseman, Frank, that's not.
Okay, but what about the full no move, no trade? Like he doesn't have to go anywhere.
Yeah, but he'll accept it to a competitive team. Like he's not going to go to a bad team.
Why would he go to a bad team? Correct.
Yeah.
But like, what if it's a team in a city that he doesn't want to play in?
Well, you're right. Hey, San Jose, there might only be realistically 5 or 6 teams that you want to go to, but we've seen other guys get rid of contracts we thought were untradeable because they weren't good. And those guys got moved. So
but they've I think never been for a contract this expensive. And they've never been for a player this old.
Yeah, but 32 in today's NHL, Frank, like
it's that he goes till 37. That's the issue. It's not the 32 year. No one's complaining about that.
But look at elite players today. Look at elite players at 36, 37.
But look at elite players that have his kind of injury history. Like I think you're taking a way too simplistic and recent biased view of how well he's played this season and at the tail end of last season to say that this is a foregone conclusion that he will continue to play this way.
Well, hey, like I said, you can never guarantee injuries for anybody, but that's the only knock here. And if we're always
and the contract is not insured, I don't think so. It's not like you'd be getting off the hook if there's an injury, because I don't think you can insure it with the major surgery that he had with the Sens.
But was it insured originally because he didn't have the injuries when he first signed?
Sign. No, he. Oh no, he 100% he did. He signed in 2019.
Yeah, but at that point, Frank, he had only had that was the 1 year, right? Like he got injured in.
He got injured in Ottawa and missed a forever amount of time. Came to San Jose, played a full season under the old deal, and then signed a new deal. This deal there's no way it's insured.
Yeah, but look, Frank, so his injury in Ottawa happened in 2012-13, right? He only played 17 games in the lockout season. Then he played 82, 82, 82, 77, and 71. Like he wasn't really, like after his initial surgery, he only missed.
No, that's 5? Not the injury that I'm talking about. It's the one.
Well, those are all the games.
No, it's not. So why did he only play 53 in 2018-19?
Yeah, that's the injury. Yeah, but it wasn't in Ottawa is what I'm saying. Right? He got hurt and he missed 30 games in San Jose in 18-19. Right? And his contract.
Here's what I'm saying. It's not insured. Bank on it. I'll bet you anything. It's not insured.
Okay.
Doesn't matter. We can argue about the games all you want.
Yeah, but if it's not insured, that's fine. But that's interesting because he signed that after a season where he got one injury, really, because I would think the previous 5 years where you combine only miss 15 games, that shouldn't be enough to have a contract uninsurable.
Oh yeah. It was that significant of an injury going back to Ottawa.
But if you're an NHL owner, Frank, and we see how the price of teams has gone up significantly. I'll say when I saw some of the contracts that teams sign, guys, Erik Karlsson, I don't think either one of us is debating. He's a top 3 defenseman in the NHL.
Sure.
Top 5 for sure. So if you get him for $8 million,
just so you know, just so there's clarity. I did look up the injury, the one that I'm talking about. It's the torn tendon in his left foot that he underwent surgery for. He missed the beginning of the 2017-18 season. And that was the surgery. It was so significant that it said, I remember his quotes, they were gross. He said something like, I don't feel like myself, and it felt like I'm walking around in a leather boot.
Yeah. Because what's funny, Frank? So that year he came back, right? And so he missed the first 11 games.
So what I'm saying is it's not the Achilles injury from 2012-13 that I'm talking about. Okay. It's the one from 2017-18 that was before he went to San Jose. And San Jose traded for him knowing that he had that issue. And this was part of the issue that everyone was like, why are you signing this guy to this massive 8-year, $92 million contract when you're the only team in the league that's going to pay him that number?
No, I agree with you. The contract was way too high at the time. But it's funny that Karlsson says all those things about him and, it feels like I can't skate. Yet he comes back and still scores 62 points in 71 games. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so even though he felt like junk, he was still highly productive as a defenseman. Right?
He went to San Jose and was not very good for the first number of years. And that was not all on Brent Burns.
No. Well, his production, right? Like in his first year in San Jose.
Cliff.
Well, goal scoring wise, but he had 45 points in 53 games.
Look at 2020-21. He had 22 points in 52
that was
games.
The year he was terrible. Yeah. That was
so the year, to say that what you're saying is, 32, not that old. Like, my point in all of that is to say there is zero guarantee that he continues to play at this level. Yeah, he's one of the very rare few players in this league that can actually get to that level, which is a huge feather in his cap. And I'm not knocking him. All I'm saying is, it's very complicated. This is extremely complicated.
But here's to GMs who are hesitant, look at who they sign as free agents every summer. Guys who never have elite talent, and they get $7 and $8 million for 7 years. You're gonna walk away from an elite talent who's 4 years, not 8, 4 at 8.5.
But no one signs those guys to 4-year deals at age 33. They don't. They sign them to those deals at 26.
26
and 27.
Guys 29, 28, 30, 8-year deals.
Yeah, well, JT Miller and the Canucks, how's that working out?
29. Like, I just think NHL GMs, now I get that they're going to play this card, but if I'm Mike Greer, I'm going to look and say, wait a sec. Let's go back to the last 5 years of free agency or teams re-signing their own guys. It's the same thing. And look at their age, 28, 29, 8-year deals, getting $7.5, $8 million, and none of them are as dominant as their position as Karlsson.
Let me go back to my original question. What are you getting for him? And the answer I'm telling you is not going to be very much, I don't think.
Okay. Well, then that's San Jose's fault. And if a team can, of course, if I'm the team acquiring him, I want to give up as little as possible. But I'm just saying, I wouldn't turn away.
Recent history with contracts. I get exactly what you're saying. Look at Alex DeBrincat. Look at this is why I brought it up with Timo Meier. He's due a $10 million qualifying offer.
Yeah.
What are the Sharks getting for him? These are players in their prime, 10 years younger. DeBrincat, 24, 2-time 40-goal scorer. They got a first, second, and third.
Yeah. And
and a
Now,
really high first at that in a number 7 overall pick from Ottawa. But it shows you how difficult it is to move money.
yeah,
And
but I just think like DeBrincat, no offense, he's not Erik Karlsson. Like I think Erik Karlsson is one of the truly elite players in the game.
okay. So answer my question then. What are you trading to get him?
Well, I told you what I would trade. I think you're going to have to give up a contract, obviously, and San Jose is willing to take that. And it might even be 2 contracts, right? They'll probably have to have something that equals up to $8.5 million, right?
But
Because
what is San Jose getting? Like what in value are they getting aside
I
from
think
getting off the contract?
they'll get a first rounder. I think if you're San Jose, you want a prospect who's a recent, high pick. Well, not even high pick, just a recent trending high prospect. They would probably take 2 of them at least because San Jose's got nothing. So if I'm
So
San
you
Jose,
think they can get a first round pick, 2 prospects, and eat 2 contracts and $3 million bucks on Karlsson's deal?
well, eating the 2 contracts is helping the other team, not San Jose. So you're getting a first and 2 really good prospects. That's what I think.
To give up Erik Karlsson and eat $3 million on his deal and take 2 shitbag contracts.
Well, yeah. What do you think that's too much or that's not enough?
I don't think it's enough.
Oh, okay.
That's what I'm
Yeah.
saying. And the whole thing is what is in it for San Jose? And I don't know that there is enough given how elite he is and all the things that we're talking about, but also the risk. It's a really hard trade.
Yeah.
And
Oh, I don't discount.
let's wrap with that.
Yeah. Oh, I don't discount that it's hard trade. All I know is if I'm an opposing GM, I want to revisit this in 4 years when Erik Karlsson's in the last year of his deal. The only thing that's going to say that Erik Karlsson isn't valuable is that if he suffers another injury. But I've been told, Frank, that he is fully recovered from the odds of him re-injuring his current the thing that plagued him the last 2 years is low. So, but
Okay.
Timo Meier, the $10 million good
Let's
for his
save
agent.
Timo Meier for Monday.
Okay, I'll say this, Frank. Even if you trade for him, I think a team's going to trade for him with the opportunity to talk to him first, right? Because he's not going to get 10 million. No one will qualify him at 10, but he might re-sign for a team for 8 or 8.5, right?
Okay, let's talk on Monday about Timo Meier.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of the season. It's a long one.